Good evening, London News, Wednesday, the 3rd of November, 21. Yes, I thought I'd turn my back on the controls. The good news is I had a wonderful chat with our dear friend Bill Turner today, who had a medical episode some time ago, a few months. He's back to health 100% and working really hard. I asked him, could I share his video that he put up on his channel. Now, Bill Turner, if you want to look at his channel directly, it's Bill Turner. You find him on YouTube. Just type his name in. You can type N or Z afterwards. It makes it easier. If you really want to know what's going on in the legal fictional system, Bill is probably the guru. So this video he put up on YouTube was so good. I asked him, could I share it? And of course he said, yes. More people that watch the better. Okay, let's go and have a look at Bill's video. And then at the end of it, I'll give you a little bit of news on the common law court, what's happening. And there's been some wonderful changes, and there's going to be some very, very serious cases very, very shortly now that we're out of lockdown. See you in a few minutes' time. Bye for now.
Today, once again, more homework for you guys. Part of the learning process, so you need to learn this homework, and no making excuses saying the dog ate your homework. Now, back in the day when I was a boy and we rode dinosaurs to school, every week the town crier would come down into the town square with his bell, and he would walk towards the town square ringing his bell and saying, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye," and then would proceed to read out public notices. Now, that is biblical. Everything is done in three. I've said it many, many times. Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto thee, that this night before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice." Now, 3 times is all the way through the Bible, but it's also how they operate their system. That is their rule book. So 3 notices is what most companies and anything that's important, you must put 3 public notices in the newspaper. Although in more recent times they've used the internet and other means of publishing the notices, but they still must give us 3 notices when they make a demand. So they'll give a demand. We've got 3 days to respond. Then 3 weeks we will get another notice, and then 3 months we'll get the final notice. Now, if we ignore any of those 3 demands, they automatically, it's a process of law, they automatically have a judgment. They only need to apply to the courts for enforcement of that judgment. So never ignore demand notices. Now, you'll also find that people are starting to get worried about people coming to the door. So I decided to go online and check on the police website. And it's pretty clear here. It says there is no legal requirement to give a trespass notice in writing. They do, however, supply a trespass notice. So we can ask, now if we give the 3 verbal warnings to Mr. Trespasser or Mrs. Trespasser, we can then ask for their name, fill out the form, download the form from the police website there, ask for their name, fill it out, and send them on their merry way. You see, they rely on fear. And as long as we're in fear and we don't know our rights, they will always have the upper hand. But let's start learning, because they honestly believe that statute gives them power when it doesn't. Weet-Bix gives you more power. They also have the systems to back them up, and that's why they're not afraid. Even though the Pope warned them in 2013 that the age of Pisces was over and they no longer had the Pope's protection. Their system was over. A lot of them haven't learned, and they still keep trying to enforce the old system when they have no right to. So if we know our rights, they lose all their power. This is one of the great ones. They always say, I cannot give legal advice. Now, the reason they can't give legal advice because legal advice is company policy. That is the company that's the companies that are ruling the world, masquerading as governments, and they have a legal system. But if you go to the court website, courts have a wide variety of roles, including enforcing the criminal law, resolving civil disputes, upholding the rights of individuals, ensuring that government agencies stay within the law, and explaining the law. But courts are independent and impartial, and the decisions of individual judges sitting in courts are subject only to law. Read that carefully, only to law, not to statute. So all this posturing and masquerading on TV and in the press and on radio by certain individuals, they only have statute. The judges must uphold law. Law applies to us if we know how to use it. And nowhere in law have I found that we must give them our name and address. I've looked everywhere, and believe me, I'm quite diligent when I do go looking. So when they threaten us with arrest, ask on what grounds. So we refuse to give them our name, refuse to give them their address, but we do it by asking them a question, not by saying, no, I'm not going to give you my name. So if they threaten us with arrest, ask on what grounds. On what grounds are you going to arrest me? Constable or bailiff or whatever. You see, if you go to the Crimes Act 1961, offence is not punishable except under the Acts. No one shall be convicted of any offence at common law or any offence against any Act of Parliament of England or the Parliament of Great Britain or the Parliament of the United Kingdom, provided that nothing in this section shall limit or affect the power or authority of the House of Representatives to punish for contempt. That whole Crimes Act, there is only one offence that is punishable, and that is contempt of court. But that is if we go in our sui juris capacity. Sui juris is having full legal rights or capacity. So if you ask the judge, do you have any rights over the sui juris? They must respond no. They only have rights, or they only have jurisdiction over the defendant. Defendant being a fiction, sui juris is the lawful, and they have no jurisdiction over the sui juris. So knowing your rights, knowing that you have sui juris capacity, that you are not the defendant, and by asking the judge, they then have no jurisdiction over you. Okay, now a lot of people are concerned because of the constant barrage that we're getting. So once again, I took a trip to the website, and here we go. Look at that, medicines. But look what happens here. Provisional consent, approval date 3rd of the 2nd, 2021. Expiry date 30th of the 11th, 2021. Okay, so they're rushing full on to try and get this, to try and get everyone jabbed before their mandate expires. This is what the mad rush is. This is what the free donuts and coffee and food vouchers is about. They run out on the 3rd of the 11th. Don't fall for it, folks. Okay, there it is, 3rd of the 11th. Okay, now another thing. If you're going to get caught out and get arrested for public uprisings, or which I'm not for one moment endorsing, but what I am telling you is that unless we push back against these monsters, then they will keep marching forward. So we must push back. So what is represent? To exhibit, to expose before the eyes, to represent a thing is to produce it publicly. To represent a person is to stand in his place. Get that carefully. To represent a person is to stand in his place. But it goes a little bit further, because these cunning blighters over here, who you trust and go to all the time thinking that they're going to look after you, it is their job to represent. Re being a prefix is to present us, the real man, as the straw man or the surname. Okay, that's their job, that's their role, because they cannot do anything to a real man. All they do is administer estates, which we shall see. From Bovier's Online Law Dictionary, representative, one who represents or is in the place of another. 3, a representative of a deceased person. This is what they do. They administer estates. Sometimes called a personal representative or legal personal representative, is one who is executor or administrator of the person described. Okay? And then we go to New Zealand Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Representation, standing in the place of another person for certain purposes. Thus, an agent represents his or her principal. Now, don't forget that. Anyone who comes in attacking an individual is only an agent, which means that we are the principal, which is the highest. Okay, Section 2, a statement. See the Contractual Remedies Act 1979. Statements during negotiation for a contract include misrepresentation. Okay, so now we'll go and have a look at what misrepresentation means. And under the Contractual Remedies Act, damages for misrepresentation. If a party to a contract has been induced to enter into it by a misrepresentation, so if they have represented us as a fiction, they have misrepresented us. So our remedy lies in a judicial review, and if you read this, he shall not, in the case of fraudulent misrepresentation or of an innocent misrepresentation made negligently, be entitled to damages. Okay, so you've got to see that under a judicial review, you will get your remedy. Okay, now the next thing is warrants to arrest, because a lot of people have been contacting me from being arrested and so on, and it's the biggest con of all. It is absolutely a con, and they know that they can get away with it because we don't know our rights. Now, the Summary Proceedings Act 1957 is where this warrants to arrest comes from. A summary jurisdiction, the power of a court to give judgment or make an order forthwith. Okay, so they're rushing us to justice. They're not giving us due process of law. Summary offences are mainly set out in the Summary Offences Act 1981 and include such offences as disorderly behaviour, which is the one they're trying to arrest people on now. So learning this part is going to be the key to the pushback, because once we know this, they're going to start leaving us alone. We will be able to have picnics in the park. We will be able to go and voice our opinions, because now we're starting to learn our rights. So let's look at what a summary is. As a noun, an abridgment, brief, compendium, digest, also a short application to a court or judge without the formality of a full proceeding. So what they're doing is they're rushing us to justice. They're not giving us due process. And if they don't give us due process, we have remedy, as in the previous slide, with a judicial review. But most judges know that if you go in and challenge the jurisdiction as Ssui Juris, normally the first part of a summary jurisdiction is that you will have 2 JPs. Those 2 JPs know nothing about the law. All they want is to rush you to justice, and if you agree to give them jurisdiction, you are convicted. However, if you attack the jurisdiction and enter as a Ssui Juris, not the defendant, then they must move the proceeding up to a proper judge. So warrants to arrest must be signed and dated. They're not. There will be all sorts of mistakes on that, and you can guarantee that most bailiffs or constables will say, we've got a warrant for your arrest, and most people will, like little sheep, just go along with them and say, okay, arrest me, instead of asking for the form. Now, they must go away and get the form. It must have the judge's signature on it and the date, or the registrar. It must have the date and must have the signature there. If it doesn't, and normally they'll have wrong dates, they'll have spelling mistakes, all sorts of things that make the warrant illegal. Okay, so have a look at the section 888AA of the Summary Proceedings Act. That's where it is. And 88AB of the Summary Proceedings Act is, if a defendant is arrested under a warrant for arrest issued for the purpose of section 882A, the following provisions apply. The defendant must be brought before the registrar. The defendant is bailable as of right. Now, as I said earlier, don't say that you are the defendant. Say that you are attending in your Ssui Juris capacity. That will move you up to a judge, not to 2 JPs. Okay, so the only thing holding us back, guys, is this one thing: fear. So let's rejoice. Let's learn our rights and lose our fear. And the moment we do lose our fear, we will push back and they will retreat. Their system is already over. It's crumbling before our eyes, and it doesn't have long to go. So keep learning and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Well, guys, that was a great show from Bill Turner. Go to his channel, look up the rest of his videos, and really learn the system. Now we've got a common law court behind us. The reason for that is I'm not just running the common law court with my dear friend Anne. There's not the two of us. We've got a team of really enthusiastic people who are currently looking for a venue. We've got 17 indictments, as you probably have heard before. We intend to run them all. I will do the first one, and the other guys will be taking over and running the next lot of court cases. So we've got some experience. Anyway, London News. If you look, spread the word. If you have a few dollars to put into our kitty, we need it, because we need to purchase more stuff. We appreciate the people who put some money in. I really appreciate that, guys. It's paying for quite a few bills. Anyway, London News signing off. Thanks for watching, and let's keep on winning. Bye for now.